Bashir. Cool ass name. But I'm glad that you liked the video that I posted about the San tribe or the Bushmen and how this tribe is the one of the oldest tribes that we have ever known about, and that the Asiatic features of the Asian people come from this tribe. But this tribe actually disproves the words of your book, the words of Yahweh. And let me explain why, because you mentioned language, and I'll use that as the basis of explaining why. Just the dating of this tribe goes beyond the dating of the Bible. When you go through and look at from Adam all the way up into Jesus, or even up to David, but most of the time it's done up to Jesus. This is how they develop biblical timelines as to when these events supposedly happened in history. And when you look at that, you'll see that the Adam and Eve story happened in around 6,637 years ago, roughly. So you're looking at 4,600 BCE is when the Adam and Eve story happened. This tribe is greatly older than that, as well as the Sumerians and the Arcadians are actually older than that, and many other groups of people are much older than the Genesis story. Now, you mentioned the Tower of Babel. First, the Genesis story goes against the Tower of Babel story in the effect of this: his children, Noah's children, Noah's child Japheth had two sons. Those two sons left, and when they left with their own language. Right now, this story happens before the Tower of Babel story happens, as far as the flood. The flood is supposedly about 4,000 plus years ago, right? Well, around 4,000 plus years ago. So that would put it in around the 3,000, 2,000 time frame BCE era. Okay, more closer to the 2000 BCE era. The Tower of Babel happened around 2030 BCE, well, 2300 BCE, which one is not that much time for them to have that many people to build an entire city, of Babylon. But the other portion to that is the fact that around at 2300 BCE, the Kemetic people already had a language. The Cushite people already had a language. The Sumerians, the Arcadians, the Assyrians already had languages. The Minoans already had a language. There were people in the Americas already had languages. There were people in Asia already had languages. People all over the world already had languages prior to the story of Babel. The story of Babel really is the fact that when they learned of the city of Babylon during their captivity, Babylon in the Babylonian language, the Assyrians, the Akkadians, it means gateway of the gods. The ancient Hebrew language has a similar term called babel, which means confusion. So literally, they changed the meaning of the city and the name when they left Babylonian captivity and changed and created that story at that time frame. Now, according to the Babylonian story, the Akkadian, Assyrian, Sumerian story, Babylon was a city for Marduk. Sometimes Yahweh, sometimes El, sometimes Enki, different gods over a 3,000-4,000 year period. But it was considered a gateway of the gods. The ziggurats that were built were supposedly, according to their story, I'm not saying it's true, this was a communications tower for Marduk or Baal when they were in conflict, when he battled against El or Enlil. And Enlil or El destroyed the tower, and then Marduk's forces couldn't communicate with each other anymore. And then that's where the Hebrew get the story of confusing languages, because Marduk's forces couldn't communicate with each other anymore. Now, beyond that, it has also been taught, and you can see in many ancient civilizations, and this is more likely a truer aspect of it. People believe that they had to climb to the highest mountain in order to communicate with their God. This is why temples were built on top of mountains when you go to Peru, to Mexico, to places like that. If they didn't have a mountainous range that they could build on, i.e., Babylon, then they would build mountains, ziggurats, in order for them to communicate with the gods, which is the more likely reason why the tower was actually built instead of a communication tower for Marduk. But that's just more evidence that shows that it is not Yahweh. It is not the Tower of Confusing Languages. And it amazes me that people literally believe that everybody on the planet in and around 23 BCE spoke the same language when we have clear evidence that there were multiple languages around the world at that time frame, that even in that area of the Levant and North Africa, in the Mediterranean, because that's what it's Mediterranean history, that in the Mediterranean, that there were multiple languages in the Mediterranean at that time frame. All it takes is a quick searches and you can find out how many different languages were spoken around 2300 BCE. And that'll let you know that this story is not true. So you have a great day. Remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.